Leaders of the wealthiest democracies have agreed on a plan to counter China's global influence. The first face-to-face G7 summit since the pandemic began has showcased a newfound Western unity. Day 2 of the talks in southwest England focused on holding back the rising power of authoritarian states such as China and Russia. The third and final day will wrap up with pledges of cash to help fight climate change.
Even environmental protesters who turned out to criticize the pace of climate action had words of welcome for the U.S. president.
I'm really glad that Joe Biden has brought back this spirit of multilateralism, that the leaders are now actually talking to each other and that the idea of climate denial is off the table.
Tackling climate change is one of the issues French President Emmanuel Macron says will be easier now that Washington wants to partner up.
We have to face a lot of challenges, a lot of crises. Climate change, and for all these issues what we need is cooperation. And I think it's great to have the US president part of the club and very willing to cooperate.
I think we can do a lot too. The United States, I've said before, we're back. The US is back. We feel very, very strongly about the cohesion of NATO, and I for one think that the European Union is an incredibly strong and vibrant entity.
The spirit of cooperation is working for Biden as he won G7 support for the Build Back Better World initiative, which will mobilize public and private capital to help close a $40 trillion infrastructure gap with developing countries. The U.S. wants to create a counterweight to Chinese investment. Although German Chancellor Angela Merkel emphasized the plan is not against Beijing, it's for assisting poorer countries. We know there's a huge need for infrastructure in Africa, for example. It's in our interest that Africa develops in an economically sensible way. You can't just say China will do it. Merkel also called on her fellow G7 leaders to share more coronavirus vaccines with developing countries. The group is expected to finalize commitments to preventing future pandemics in their summit communique Sunday.
DW correspondent Alexander von Namen has been reporting throughout from Cornwall, where the G7 summit is taking place this weekend. Alexandra, day 3 will soon get underway. How productive has the summit been so far?
Well, at first view, you would say the summit has been quite productive. The leaders have adopted a declaration to prevent future pandemics. They have pledged to donate at least 1 billion vaccine doses. They are ready to launch a new infrastructure initiative. However, we also have to say that those declarations are non-binding declarations. And we also have to keep in mind that such meetings are not only about concrete results. When we consider that G7 started as a fireplace meeting, so G7 is also about coming together, talking face to face, trying to build a rapport. And this meeting is particularly about welcoming Joe Biden as the new U.S. president. And it is supposed to send a strong signal that the G7 leaders are united and ready to take on the current challenges.
You know, I'm curious, that infrastructure project aimed at countering China's global influence sounds very ambitious. What more can you tell us about it?
It sounds very ambitious indeed. The plan is to raise hundreds of millions or even hundreds of billions in both public and private money to invest in the infrastructure of poorer countries and roads and bridges, but also in their digital and health infrastructure. And the US was pushing for this initiative to be adopted because they see it as an alternative, Western alternative to China's highly criticized Belt and Road Initiative scheme. However, some European leaders are still very cautious. We just heard from German Chancellor Angela Merkel. She was trying to play down this initiative a bit, saying it's not against Beijing and it's just about establishing a task force first. So as you can see, European leaders are very cautious because they regard China not only as a rival and competitor, but also as a partner on global issues.
That's DW correspondent Alexander von Namen from the G7 summit in southwestern England. Many thanks. Crossing to China now, where correspondent Matthias Bollinger is standing by in Beijing. Matthias, China has criticized G7 plans to create a green belt and road plan to counter China's influence. Beijing says the days when global decisions were dictated by a small group of countries are long gone. How does China feel about being increasingly perceived as a competitor by the West?
Well, this is definitely something that China is worried about. I mean, before this meeting is just one of a series of events that have been happening in the last 4 or 5 years that were aimed at maybe restricting China's influence in the world or countering China's more assertive policies. Let's just remember the South China Sea that China is now claiming entirely as its own waters. Let's talk about the policy in Hong Kong, where it has ended the system that was guaranteed before. Let's talk about the human rights violations in Xinjiang and its more aggressive policies towards Taiwan that it regards as its own territory. And this combined with a very much more aggressive tone by Chinese diplomats. This statement that you've just quoted that was issued by the embassy in London is very calm and very toned down compared to some other things we have heard in the past few years. All this is a sign that China sees itself increasingly also in a battle, in a concurrence, competition with the West, and this is a mutual feeling, I would say.
Yeah, you have a completely different perspective there in Asia than one does have here in Europe. So does the change in administrations in Washington from President Trump to his successor, Joe Biden, make any difference to China?
Well, I think the establishment in China, the foreign policy establishment, is understanding that this was not a one-time pet project by an unpredictable American president, but that a confrontational approach to China's rise is part of the American policy. Before, I am not sure who believed what, who was how convinced that the policies would be softer on China with Biden. But at least that was what some of the state media have been saying. Once this Trump period is over, things will get to what they were before. They clearly have not, and it seems at least the Chinese public is perceiving this now and is partly surprised or is taking this a lot more serious. And for now, a lot of people rally around the Chinese government on this issue, which is it's always hard to say whether this is a majority or not, because a lot of other voices are censored. But China is realizing now that the things have really changed in the West.
That's Matthias Bollinger in Beijing. Thanks so much.